Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's lecture. In today's lecture, we're going to talk about leadership, right? Particularly, we're going to talk about how leadership theories has been applied in the business operations, particularly in the sports industries. The outline for today's class, first of all, we're going to basically introduce the concept of the leadership, and we try to compare leadership with the management. In terms of leadership theories, we're mainly going to talk about 6 leadership theories coming from 4 areas. The first one is a tri-leadership, basically teach you what are the characteristics of effective leaders. And the second one is about behavior leadership theories. Behavioral leadership theories try to help you to look at different leadership styles. And the third one is called situational leadership theories. After understanding different leadership style, how we are able to apply the leadership style in the different situations. And the last one, we're going to talk about transactional and transformational leaderships, right? So, which is also the most important leadership theories nowadays. Okay. So what is a good leader? When you apply for a job, a lot of students would like to include your skills in your resume, right? A lot of students always mention that you have very good communication skills, writing skills. Sometimes students will include leadership skill in your resume. So during the job interview, if you include leadership skill, people will always ask you questions. Can you give me an example to indicate that you have a very good leadership skill? And how are you going to adjust that questions? To be able to answer that question, you really need to understand the fundamental principles of being a good leader, right? So leader is actually a broader term than a manager, right? Because people who are not in the manager position could also become a leader. I'll give you an example. When you're playing sport, all the sports team, they will have captain, right? The captain has not been assigned as a manager positions, but he or she, he's also able to influence other people and help the team achieve their goal. It's the same in the sports marketing organization, right? If you're new, you just got a job, you always like to ask and consult those senior staff. So those senior employees, although they're not managers, they use their experience and knowledge to provide the guidelines and directions. So we would think those people are also demonstrating their leadership. So leadership, from that perspective, has something to do with power, knowledge, and experience, right? What are the differences between leadership and management? So leaderships are the process of influencing activities of the organizing group towards the goal achievements in a given situation. Right? Management is the process of using available resources to obey organizational goal. Right? In the previous lectures, we spent time to talking about the management. Right? Management, when we look at the definition, there are 3 very important components in that definition. My first one is we have to set the goal. And second one is we need to use a very limited resource to achieve this goal. And the third one is we need to collaborate with people, right? I hope you still remember the definition we introduced 2 weeks ago. For the leadership, right? Leadership is more about influencing other people to achieve the goal, right? So we care more about how we're able to inspire other people, right? We have to analyze the situation and help people to achieve the goal at the end, right? So if we say management, we care more about the outcome. Leadership, we care more about the process. So that are the differences between leaderships and management. A boss and a leader could also be different, right? From these pictures, you can see a boss normally use a different way to interact with the employees. The leader also use a different way. A boss, sometimes they would drive employees, right? When they made a decision, they normally depend on their authority. Sometimes they will inspire fears. They say, if you don't follow exactly what I want you to do, you will be fired, right? When they say everything, they start with I, right? And they basically use people. They take credits right? To be a leader, normally, instead of just dry employee, we normally coach them, give them direction, let them know what your expectations are, right? We normally can generate enthusiasms, inspire them, encourage them. Instead of saying, I want you to do this, a good leader should say, we need to do this together, right? So instead of just, using people, taking credit away from employees, a leader, we need to give credit to people. When your employee doing a great job, give credit to them, right? So those are the differences between a boss, demanding boss, and effective leaders. Right. Now let's look at corporate leadership theory. As we introduced previously, we're going to talk about 4 types of leadership theory. Right. Tri theory, mainly look at the characteristic of leader, behavior leadership theories, look at different leadership style, situational leadership theories. We look at how the different leadership style can be applied into different situations. And last one, we're going to look at transactional and transformational leadership theories. We start with the tri theory first. Tri theories, which is also one of the leadership theory, has been considered as a classical leadership theory, which is also the first types of leadership theories has been introduced in today's world. So tri theory started to develop in the late 18th centuries until the middle of 1940s. Tri theory has also been considered as a good man theories, right? They believe all the leaders, they're born, those are new nature skills, right? So tri theories address the similarity from one person to another. If a person is a successful leader with certain trait, another person with that same trait will also become a very successful leader, right? So for the trait theory, there are a lot of research has been conducted in the last, let's say, 100 years, and to try to identify what kind of traits or characteristic to be very effective leaders. One of the very influential studies published in 1971, they say a successful leader need to have 6 traits. The first one is supervisory ability. You are able to supervise other people to do things. The second thing is they need to have a need for occupational achievement, so they need to self-develop. They need to have a motivation to develop themselves, right? They always need to be intelligent. They have to make decisions. They have a self-assurance. They always believe in themselves, and they have initiative. They can start to do things. So there are a lot of studies has been conducted in the tri theories, as we mentioned previously. But they also receive a lot of criticism, right? So there are mainly 5 types of criticisms that are related to trait theories. The first type of criticism, they say, if you really want to create a full list of leadership trait, you possibly will have endless list of the leadership traits. So you could include a long list, right? So that's a big criticism. They say it's difficult for us to just go and identify, what will be the most effective trait to be effective leaders. Second thing is they say they don't consider about the situational effect. They also think trait theory are very subjective, right? The same leader, 10 people work with the same leader may come up with a different solution about why this leader is so effective, right? We ignore the impact of the environmental factors, right? Also, we consider as external factors. And they also think trait theories, they fail to link the outcome, such as productivities and employee satisfactions, into considerations, right? So the biggest criticism about trait theories is they think leadership skill cannot be trained, cannot be learned. They're come with nature, right? So there are a lot of criticism about the trait theories. As the first leadership theories in the business world, trait theories has been broadly utilized in today, right? So in using MFL example, if the MFL assign a new player, the new player normally will have to complete a MFL Wordlist test. So these tests actually help the MFL to have a better understanding about their new player, to see whether they have a potential leadership skills. and help them understand about their personalities, how we are able to work with them, help them develop in these professional sports. Okay, so this is about the trait theories. The second type of leadership theories we're going to look at is we're going to look at behavior leadership theories. We're going to look at the behaviors of effective leaders. So we mainly investigate leadership side. Right. So what is the leadership side? It's a combination of the trait, skill, behavior the manager used to interact with the employees. So there are three behavior leadership theories we're going to talk about. These three theories are very similar, really related to one another. The first theory is called theories S, theories Y. The second one is called side theories of the leadership. The third one is called two-dimensional theory. So let's look at each of the leadership theories one by one. First one is the leadership S and leadership Y. Okay, so what's the leadership S and leadership Y? So Douglas McGill in 1960 developed a skill to identify whether a leader is more close to leadership S or more close to a leadership Y. So in this skill, it includes 10 questions. You can spend a little time to look at these 10 questions. So all the questions in green color. So if you usually have this kind of behavior, you can mark it 1. If you seldom have that behavior, you mark it 4. For all these questions in the white color, if you usually have that behavior, you mark it 4. If you seldom have that behavior, you mark it 1. Right, and then you calculate the total score. If your total score are very close to 10, you'll be considered have some sort of the leadership S behavior. If your total score very close to 40, that you will have some sort of like leadership wise behavior. Right. I did this experiment in my class all the time, and a lot of students, they are great, close to like between 20 or 30, so that you have both kind of like leadership behaviors. The question here is, what is leadership S and what is leadership Y? So leadership S is used by the manager who assume the employees they are automatic and dislike about their work. Right. So for the theories as managers, or theories as management side, so they base on a pessimistic view of human nature. So they think average people dislike the work. We try to avoid those work if that's possible, because they don't like what they're doing. We have to control them, direct them, sometimes threat them with punishments to get them made effect. Theories X managers tell people what to do, so they are very directed. They like to control everything. They show very little confidence in employees, so they often foster dependence, passive, and resentful subordinate. So that's a theories S. Theories Y, used by the manager who believe the worker they are self-motivated, responsible, and committed to taking ownership of their work. So theories Y management side is based on more automatic view of human nature. So they think workers, they like what they're doing. They think work is as nature as play and a race. People want to and can be self-directed and self-controlled. So they try to achieve this goal they believe in. So since they can be motivated, so theories Y management side or leadership side, they try to give more credit to the employee, try to include this employee in the decision-making process, try to collaborate with them. Right. So those are the difference between S and Y. Leadership S, they're more like do not believe what employees, they have to provide more guidance, more directions. Theories Y, they really trust the employees, so they give them credits. Right. So that's the theories X and theories Y theories. So this is very similar to the side of the theories of the leadership. So the side theories of the leaderships, so they classify leadership side into 3 types: autograph, demograph, and laissez-faire. This is also the most common leadership theory. When you're taking other leadership courses, you possibly have learned this leadership side already. So for the autograph leaders, so they normally use command and control approach. A lot of decisions are top-down decisions, right? So if you're a manager, autograph leadership is you basically want to make decision by yourself. You don't normally take opinions from your employees, right? So they can help you make a very quick decisions, right? So sometimes you could be very demanding, right? That's the autograph leaders. And the demograph leaders, right? So they would consider everyone's opinions, right? People's at all levels of participate in decision-making process. Before you make a decision, you always ask people about their opinions and what do you think about it? How should we adjust these things? Right. So the benefit for the demograph leaders is you can improve morale, reduce turnover, and result in higher productivities. But the problems is the decision-making process takes forever, right? Because you have to talk to everyone, ask them about their opinions. Maybe people have different opinions, and this time as the managers, you have to think about how we are able to balance those different opinions. Right, the second type leader. Third type of leadership style is called laissez-faire. So they provide very little guidance to their employees. So for this kind of leaders, you give all the freedom to the employee to let them to make decision. Right. So when employee come over and ask you, say, what should I do next? So you don't give them the guidance. You just say, hey, think about it by yourself. You give them freedom, but you don't provide them a lot of guidance. So there could be issue and problems with the laissez-faire leaderships. Right. When we look at autograph leaders, demograph leaders, laissez-faire leaders, so those are very similar to theories X and theories Y we talked about previously. Right. Theories X is more close to autograph leaders. Right. Theories Y is more close to demograph leaders. Right. So these the side theories of the leadership. The third type of behavior leadership theory is called two-dimensional theories. So two-dimensional theories, this idea starting from 1960s. At that time, there are two different models, Ohio State model and University of Michigan models. So they have two different experiments. Has been conducted, one at Ohio University, another one Ohio State University, another one at University of Michigan. They come up with a very similar result. They think leadership's behavior can be classified into two types. One type is called task orientation. The second type is called relationship orientations. For the task orientation, right, so the leadership, they care more about goal setting. We set the goal. Right, we care more about organizing. We develop structure to think about how we can achieve these tasks, complete the goal. Right, we can provide more directing, and also we try to control the process to see whether we are able to achieve these goals. Right, and the second one is called relationship orientations. Relationship orientation, normally we try to give more support to our employees. During the process, we try to communicate with them, understanding about their need. We try to listen to what they want us to do. We try to provide them a feedback, help them achieve this goal. Right? So those are task-oriented and leadership-oriented. So in the Ohio State's model, this is called initiative, structure, and considerations, but they basically explain the same things. Right? So they look at leadership's behaviors into two dimensions, right? One is care more about how we can achieve the tasks. Second one, we care about how we are able to develop a good relationship with the employees. So this is a two-dimensional theories. We talk about different types of the leaderships, right? But one of the questions has been raised by scholars is how we are able to apply different leadership style in a different situation. So we need to analyze all the different situations, and then we apply those leadership style we developed previously into these situations. All right, so and then we develop something called situational leadership theory. Situational leadership theory, one of the really well-known one is called contingent leadership theories. right? Contingent leadership theories is before we recommend leader what kind of thing you need to do, what kind of leadership style you need to demonstrate, we would like to analyze the situation first. How can we analyze different situation, right? So we develop something called situational favorableness. So it's a degree to which a situation enable leader to accept influence over their followers. How can we define the situational favorableness? So there are three factors, right? The first factor is we look at the leaders and members relationship. If the leader and member have very good relationships, situational favor is more favorable situation, right? Second one is we look at task structure. Task structure is basically we look at whether the organization or the department is really well organized. Everyone understand what they need to do. They don't have a lot of conflict between different employees in terms of the task they need to complete. This is called task structure. The third factor that will determine the situational favorableness is the position of power. So which means the manager, the leader, you need to have a power to fire people. You have a power to reward people. If you have the power, you are more likely to in a very favorable situation. But when you don't have this power, it's difficult for you to collaborate with other people or drive them or direct them to do things you want them to do. Right. So this is how we analyze the different situation based on these three factors. Okay. So situational contingent leadership theory are a little bit complicated. Is they want us to apply these things into this model. In this model, again, we have a leaders and members relations. We look at the task structure. We look at the position of power, right? So we classify into a different situation, right? If situation 1, 2, 3, and A, we will recommend a leader to demonstrate task-oriented leadership style. If the situation fell into 4, 5, 6, and 7, we will recommend the leader to demonstrate relationship-oriented leadership style. Right, so we basically classify all the different situations into this A, right, based on the three factors: members relations, task structures, and position of power. Okay, I'm giving examples here and help you to understand how we are able to use this model. Right? After looking at these two examples, it should be pretty easy for you to apply the contingent leadership theories in the future when you analysis a people's leadership style. What kind of leadership style would you recommend to these leaders? The first example, right, currently you're working at the pizza restaurant. You are 24 years old. You have a very poor relationship with your employees. Right, employees, they're much older than you. They think you're so young, don't have a lot of work experience. Why could you become our leaders? So you have very poor relationship. But the restaurant has a very good task structures where everyone understands what they have to do. There's no conflict between their job duty. You also have a very strong position power. You can fire people if you're not happy about their service. You can also reward people if you're happy about their contribution to the restaurants. So which situation does it fall into and what leadership style are you going to recommend? Okay, first of all, let's look at the labor and members relationship. Do you think it's a good or not? It's poor relationship, right? So it's a poor. Let's look at the task structures here. Do they have a good task structures or poor task structures? They say good task structure, so it's a high structure, right? And look at position of power. Do you think have strong position or weak position? Have strong position. So they fall into number 5. So you would recommend them to have the relationship-oriented leadership side. You recommend them to work on relationship with other people. Make sense? Using this example, I think you understand how to use these contingent leadership tables. We'll give you another examples, right? Juan managed the process of check. He's well liked by his staff. Juan's boss enjoy hiring employee and evaluating their performance. Okay, look at this situation, do you think which situation these scenarios fall into? What leadership style would you recommend? Okay, Juan manages the processing of the check, right? He's well liked by his staff, so they have a very good leader and members relationship, right? Because everyone likes him, right? Do they have a very high structure? Yes, because he manages the process of the check, right? He understands what he need to do, and everyone understands what they need to do. Does Juan have a very strong position power? No, because Juan's boss is hiring people and evaluating their performance. Juan is not responsible for evaluating their performance, right? So they have a weak power. Good relationship, high structure, weak power. They fall into situation number 2. So we have to recommend Juan work on tasks, right? Work on task leadership side. So this is how we're gonna apply the continuous leadership tables into the situation analysis and provide a recommendation to the leaders to perform or demonstrate their leadership style. Okay, so this is the third leadership, which is a situational leadership. The last leadership theories we're going to talk about is the most popular leadership theories at the moment. One is called transactional leaderships. Another one is called transformational leaderships. For the transactional leaderships, so they set established goal and organizational boundaries. They normally emphasize organizations' performance evaluation and task and outcome oriented, right? So they normally motivate employees by using reward and punishments, right? So look at the name of the transactional leadership. What's a transaction? A transaction in our real life is we're going to transfer something for another things. When we go to a store, we as a customer would like to give them money and they give us the product we would like to purchase, right? This is the transaction. So in this transaction leadership is the same. If you want someone to do something for us, we have to pay them money for exchanging that service, right? So what situation do we prefer to have these types of leaderships? So when we have a very strict deadlines, when we're facing the strict deadlines, we have dealing with very limited resources. So transactional leadership could be very effective. So Bill Gates is one of the pretty good examples, right? They are very goal-oriented, they are task-oriented, we care more about the outcomes. So how we able to motivate people? We give them reward, right, if they're doing a great job. But if they are not meeting our expectation, we will have to punish them. Right, transactional leaderships there is normally very straightforward. They set the boundaries really clear, and they let people to understand what our expectations are as the leaders, right? And then what they need to do, just follow exactly what we want them to do. Transactional leaderships. Transformational leaderships, however, they are using different approach. They try to challenge a follower to take greater ownership. They try to motivate and engaging follower with the vision of the future, and they also would like to lead by the example. So one of the really good example is the Steve Jobs, right? Steve Jobs is definitely a transformational leader. So he has a huge influence on his employees. So a lot of time in the transformational leaderships, the employees always consider their leaders as their idols and icons. So they would like to follow exactly what the leaders shows. Right? So those are transformational leaders. They're trying to share with the employee about the vision of the organization, what the future will look like. Look at Apple, like they always have that culture, organizational culture. Let employee know what the future will look like, inspire them to do things. They normally look at them, give them pretty good guidance, and also inspire them to take the ownerships, ask them to come up with a creative idea, right? So this is about transformational leaderships. Let's try to compare those two leadership a little bit. Transformational leaderships, they have a 4 very basic principle, right? These 4 principle has also been referred as 4 I's. The first one is idealized influence we talked about previously, right? So employee normally behave a way as a leader, and other people would like to emulate that. So just like people really want to be Michael Jordan because he has huge influence on the children's, right? Within organizations, normally a leader really reflect their behavior, attitude, and perspective that you resonate with them tremendously. So a lot of employee would see a model by these people, so would like to follow exactly what the leaders does, right? So that's the idealized influence. Second one is experimental motivations. So the individuals can inspire certain behaviors, right? Some comes along and say we have a vision as organizations. We normally use motivational speech to inspire other peoples. The third one is you need to have intelligent simulations. So normally a leader recognizes the fact that people have the talent and knowledges, so they believe they can help the organization to achieve the goal. So in terms of communication, instead of telling you what you need to do, this kind of leader normally asks you, what do you think we should do on this? Let's think out of the box. So they will inspire other people to think and give them credit. Lastly, it's about individualist consideration. They understand everyone's different, right? They try to understand their strength and potential problems, try to help them solve these problems and help them improve their performance. So this is what transformational leadership shows. 4 I's: idealized influence, experimental motivation, intelligent simulations, and individualist considerations. Compared to transformational leaderships, transactional leadership we talk about, they're pretty goal oriented, they outcome oriented. They inspire you to achieve the goal by using the reward and punishments, right? They let you know what the outcome should be and let you have a very clear idea what you need to do. So both leadership are good. We're not saying whether we prefer to have transformational leaderships or transactional leadership, because both leadership theories are good. You just have to use these different types of leadership in the different situations, right? For instance, if the building is on fire, so transactional leadership sometimes could be a very good idea. So we would like to follow the leader and ask people to get out of the buildings, right? When you follow their instructions, your life could be safe, right? You don't need transformation leadership in that scenarios because you have no time to consider everyone's need, right? So we credit both transactional and transformational leadership. Just we have to think about in what situations which leadership theory is more suitable, right? So this is about transactional leadership and transformational leadership. And the last slide, let's have a quick summary about all the leadership theories we talk about. We talk about 6 leadership theories, right? We classify 6 leadership theories into 4 types of categories. First one is the trait leader theories. We look at a leader's characteristics, so what makes a leader effective. Second one, we look at leadership side, right? What we call behavior leadership theories, right? We look at whether they have a theories X, theories Y leaders, whether they have a 2 different dimension leaders, task-oriented or direction-oriented, or whether they are autograph leader, demograph leader, or they are laissez-faire leaders. When we look at their leadership side, they don't actually have a very clear distinctions to separate them, right? We talk about theories X is very close to autograph leader, theories Y is very close to demograph leaders, right? When we talk about autograph, demograph leader, there was some sort of related to task-oriented and relation-oriented. So leadership theory, they don't have a very clear distinction to separate each of them one by one. There are a lot of mix with each other. So when you try to analyze leaders about their leadership's abilities, so we always encourage you to use multiple different leadership theories, try to understand how these leaders demonstrate their leaderships in different situations by using different leadership styles. Okay. Third one is about situational leadership theory. which is a contingent leadership theories. So basically, we talk about we have different leadership style. We have to decide how we're going to demonstrate different leadership style in a different situation. Contingent leadership theories give you a situations to help you to look at it, right? Last one is the transactional and transformational leadership theories. We talk about transactional leadership theories. They are very outcome oriented. They try to motivate people by using punishments and reward. Transformational leadership theory, they are more close to demographic leaders we talked about previously, that inspire people. They try to give people's credit and inspire them to come up with a great idea to help us achieve the goal. Okay, so those are all the leadership theories that we studied today. If you have any question, please shoot me an email, and also I encourage you to go and spend some time to do the readings, which will help you to have a better understanding about those leadership theories. Okay, that's it for today. Let's have a chat again next time.